Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of the flow, yeah.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. And of course, with all of the people that I have interviewed on this show, I am most happy to have these two on because they're people that I do look up to and people that I love and have worked with in the past. So, of course, welcome to my show. Of course, I'm your girl Stephanie Hardy. Welcome to the HWP live lounge. I guess you could say we're not live, but the lounge, whatever. It's Emily Mae, who is an amazing Emmy nominated producer and backstage wrestling correspondent, and just all of the things. And we work together on Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And I'm so happy to have her alongside her husband, who is an amazing wrestler who has just gotten around in all the places in Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and even most recently, both of these people were on New Japan's Battle in the Valley with the press conference and also with the show itself. Boss Baines, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Thank you. What an intro. And it actually is 3 of us, not
That's
2.
True, yeah.
This is Figaro. She loved to do podcasts. So she's going to join us for a second.
Yeah, she likes the spotlight just as much as we do, unfortunately. So it's going to be a three-piece act for this show.
No, it's okay. I've seen Figaro come on plenty of times, so I completely get it.
Recognizes your voice, right as we started, she was like, "Oh, I'm running over." She ran and then jumped on and wanted to join us, so she'll sit right here.
That's fine. This is a pet-friendly place. We love all the animals. But of course, like I said, I'm so happy to have you guys on because I've just been fascinated with you both and your story ever since, before I even met you guys, when I saw you guys on AfterBuzz Television, because I saw Boss first and then I saw Emily Mae later. But before we get into that, I want to ask you both, when did you both fall in love with wrestling?
I have always been a fan of wrestling since I was extremely young, and I knew it's what I wanted to do. I knew it's what I wanted to pursue. And when I first started dating Emily, she didn't watch wrestling at all. So I was the one who introduced you to professional wrestling.
I knew of wrestling. I knew this existed. Because I was a theater performer and all that. So I was like, oh, it's just another form of of entertainment. And so I knew of it, but then we've known each other our whole lives practically. And so when he one of our first dates, I think, was we watched Raw with
it wasn't quite
it wasn't a date. It was a pre-date.
It was me inviting you over to see how you got along with my friends.
That's true. It was a test.
Because I was like, I can't date somebody who's not going to get along with my friends.
Yeah.
So I invited her over, and I forget who was all there.
I remember it was Joe and
Joe Galley.
Joe Galley, who's at the NWA.
NWA. I've known him since high school. A lot of people don't.
Oh, wow.
It was Alana. I know we're naming names here. Yeah. And then a few other people. I think significant others. I don't know if Mark was there.
Maybe not.
But anyway, that was our pre-date. Yeah. It was a test. And I was like, and I sat there the whole time and I was like, this is so cool. Yeah. I was like, this is amazing. Why did I not learn about this and know about this earlier. And then from there, it just, I guess you could say the rest is history. No, the rest, I mean, then I just
it's been like,
oh,
it's
it was
a lot of history.
It was a lot of history. And I was like, oh, I got to learn more about it.
We were 18 and 19 at the time. And we're older than that now.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Significantly older than that now.
We were babies.
Yeah. If it wasn't for her, I would not have pursued professional wrestling as a career. She's the one who told me to go for it. So she's the reason why I decided to pursue this as a career. So she's to blame.
I know. I am to blame. Sorry, everyone. No, so I remember. So I was going. I was in college and I was studying theater and producing and production management. I did pretty much everything. I had like 14 majors and a bunch of minors. And I remember he came up to me and he said, "Hey, there's a new school in." If you're from Los Angeles, we're from Los Angeles, so I think it was Van Nuys, right?
It was Van Nuys.
It was Van Nuys. Yeah. So he said, "Hey, there's a new school." It was like one of our summer breaks, and he told me, he said, "Hey, there's a new school coming out. I have, you know, we're all young, right? We don't have tons of money. We don't know how to get our start." And thinking kind of from my marketing brain and from my business side, I told him, I said, "You're going to do it. You're going to go and you're going to talk to the promoters and the owners of the school." And he said, "You know what? I am going to promote your school and I will put out flyers." I mean, back then we went walked around with flyers.
I didn't have any money.
We had no money. And he said, "Okay, I don't know about that. They're going to say no."
Yeah.
And I said, I remember this vividly, having this conversation.
Yeah,
I said, the worst thing they can say is no. And then what happens if they say yes?
Yeah.
And you went, you talked to them, and you did the thing, and they said yes.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the beginning of your world,
my career,
and your training.
Yeah. And it was March of 2009, so the anniversary.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
We're giving away things. And I was doing theater school. And so, so I was just trying to like perform and do all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, you guys sort of it's like you guys sort of fed each other's love for wrestling. It's like he introduced you to it, Emily, and then you encouraged him to pursue his dreams and actually go forward with enrolling in school. You know, you guys are in California doing the thing, trying to hustle, you know, and survive. But you sort of fed into him like, no, you should do this. Like, you should, you know, try. And the worst you can say is no. That's so funny because my mom says that all the time. Like, look, the worst they can say is no. And if they say no, you just got to try, you know, do something else.
Exactly.
So it's good that you guys had that sort of cyclical relationship where you guys just fed into each other in that way, instead of, you know, like a relationship where one takes from the other and take. And you know, there's no giving. It's just a reciprocal type of thing. And I love that. That's really wonderful.
Yeah. We believe in supporting each other. Like that's always been something that's really important is supporting each other in whatever the other wants to do. If they feel really strongly about it and they want to pursue it, then we support each other in that pursuit, whatever it is. Because there've been a lot of different pursuits.
A lot of pursuits.
And if they're important, then that's what matters. Then we're going to support each other in trying to make whatever it is work.
Yeah.
Definitely. So with that in mind, like what were some of the greatest lessons that you both learned from wrestling and also from theater and also sort of entertainment? Because Emily, you did mention that you did go to school for theater and in performance and producing. Like you're a woman of many hats. So really for the both of you, what were some of the best lessons that you guys learned, you know, through your training?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start.
Yeah,
I think the biggest, and which I still learn to this day and I try to value and implement, is the biggest thing is listening and understanding different perspectives and understanding how and why things are a certain way. And also just, I've always been a student of whatever subject or a student of life. And you always have to keep learning and you always have to keep improving. And that's the biggest thing. Those are the two things that I try to do every day is listen and communicate properly, because sometimes if you're not communicating, I know you're laughing, but I try.
I know you try.
You're communicating your needs, communicating how you work with other people, because in any business, especially entertainment, you're connecting with people on a different level. You're connecting through this thing that you're passionate about, whether it's film or TV or movies or wrestling. Like, you have to connect with each other. And so a lot of that is listening and kind of that back and forth. And then you have to know your stuff, and you have to study, and you have to practice.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway.
And no, like, listening is really important. Like, that's probably one of the biggest keys to performing is listening, not only to your coaches and to your peers, but to your audience, to figure out what it is that works and what it is that doesn't work. And I think one of the lessons I learned that is the most important, but the hardest to actually put into practice, is don't be afraid to fail. Everybody fails, and you only learn from failure. There is no actual failure, not really. It's just you learning the right way to not do something. That's really what it is. And it's absolutely terrifying when you're doing it. But after a while, it doesn't matter as much. And you start to lose that fear of failure. And then you end up going, well, okay, instead of focusing on what doesn't work, I'm going to focus on what does work. So I'm going to keep this that works. I'm going to keep this that works. And just keep taking little things and adding them to what you already do. Add them to your repertoire, so that by the end of everything, you're going to have something that really works. You're going to be able to go out in front of an audience, wherever that audience is, and be able to pull out something that's almost guaranteed to work. Every audience is different. And you have to know that and really take that to heart. You can go out in front of an audience in one city and get a response. You go out in front of an audience in another city, and it's liable to be a completely different response. So you have to be able to change what you bring to the table on the fly. And just don't be afraid to fail, because it's going to be difficult. But then after a while, you're going to get the rewards from doing the scientific research that is performance.
Yeah, so basically what I'm taking from you guys is definitely listening, and also just being able to adapt to certain circumstances, throughout all of it. Because it's just like, with that, like, even when I'm learning, what I'm learning every day is being able to adapt to people's schedules, being able to adapt to different circumstances, or even technological, even when you're creating content. Like, there's just so much that could very well happen, not even, that's in your control or out of your control.
Yeah.
So you do have to be able to adapt to certain things, and also listen to people, because when you listen, it just lets people know that, okay, they actually care about what's going on, or they care about what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's
right.
like number one rule in any acting class is listening. Like, you have to, like, there's exercises where I've done where you're in a room and you literally just stare into someone's eyes and soul, and you can listen without saying anything. And I think that's also an important lesson, especially in wrestling, is a lot of the communication and a lot of how you guys create this art in the ring is nonverbal.
Right.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah. And they say in acting that acting is actually reacting, that you aren't bringing something, you aren't trying to put something forward so much as taking in information and putting out information. So it's in performance, you have to see what's happening and respond to what is happening instead of just trying to do something. You're trying to create something cohesive. But that's like way into the weeds.
Yeah, we don't have to get into that.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned failing. Like, that's something that's really hard for me to deal with, because like I always am a perfectionist Virgo. So it's just like
Virgo,
I
I'm
always
a Virgo baby too.
Yeah, I'm a Capricorn.
Yay. So it's just like
right.
Everything has to be right. Everything has to be perfect. And then if it's not, you just sort of freak out, or you just cry like Emily. Like, I understand that completely.
I mean, how many times have things gone wrong on all the podcasts we do, and we're just like,
oh God,
we're trying to figure it out. And like, I've gotten, you've seen it, I've gotten much better in working on the fly and just throwing away the perfection in the moment, because you can't necessarily do that if you focus on like, I have to be perfect in this moment. It's gonna drive you crazy. At least for me, like I can't focus on that. I have to focus on listening, reacting, moving the story forward, and just being like, really, you really have to be in the moment, because if you get into your head too much, your negative voices will take over and you won't be able to do anything. And I've had some major blunders. I've fallen off chairs, I've dropped things, I've like accidentally, things have flown across the table. I've had like cats put their, you know, their butts in the camera. Like I've had so many random things. I've had lights fall, I've had wardrobe malfunctions, I've had so many things happen, and you just kind of roll with it. And I'm so dorky, and you find it endearing.
I do. I love it.
But I am so clumsy, so I've like knocked things down. I've tripped over sandbags backstage. Like I'm a mess sometimes.
But what's so funny?
I embrace it.
Right.
Yeah, but what's so funny is you're so fabulous in person. Like it's just like you seem so fabulous, and it's just like to know that you're actually really like clumsy. I mean, that's funny to know, but you just seem so fabulous, like, you know, on camera and also in person too. So, you know, I think that's great.
I mean, in high school, I did speech and debate, and that, you know, I did student council. I ran the spirit squad. I did speech and debate, which kind of broke me out of my shell a little bit. And then I also did drama. I danced, I sang. So I did all of that, which was all a way for me to express and get all of this extra creative energy out. And I was very, would you say nerdy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. I was very nerdy. I had my braces, my glasses. Yeah. I was the kind of the book smart girl, always in everything, right? I was always doing everything.
I was the bad boy.
And you were the bad boy.
I was the bad boy. I was always cutting class and never doing my homework, and always like figuring out my own way to get like through class. Like,
but you had drama, so you were in the drama program, and drama actually saved him in so many ways. And helped him get through high school. And just like drama, you find when I did theater production, I found my family. In speech and debate, I found my family. And you find your group that you stick to. And I'm friends with many of them still to this day. So
yeah, that's really good. That's just like for me, like choir was my family in high school. So, you know, that was basically, you know, my thing, along with a litany of other things just like you. So that's pretty insane.
And now we have wrestling as our other extended family.
Yeah.
True. But I mean,
and
my extended family ended up kind of getting into wrestling. Like I have two friends from high school. One ended up in NWA and the other one ended up in WWE for a time. So it's like all three of us from high school ended up in three of the biggest companies in the world, with me being in New Japan. So,
and can I tell this cute story?
Yeah, go ahead.
You probably have questions. So when I started dating him, one of the things his mom did was pull out this like book of memories. You know how moms do that? They're like, oh, baby pictures. It wasn't baby pictures. It was wrestling stuff. And she found, so Brandon would have Bounce House Wrestling. I'm telling the story, in his backyard or front yard. But backyard, both. And it was all of his best friends, and two of them are now still involved in wrestling. And so they were doing promotions when they were 15 or 16 years old. They're doing stuff in their backyard. And they made a little flyer like with color pencil.
Hold up. No, it was on the computer. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, somebody else did that.
Okay. Well, there was one I saw that was like hand done. And it was so cute, and it had like the whole card and kind of everyone the little matches, and it was so cute. And I was like, "Aw, yeah."
That's cool.
That story's ever been told.
Well, I
don't think I've ever told that story.
I told it
before.
It's an HWP exclusive.
It goes deep. It goes deep. This love, and so then that kind of made me love you even more. Just saying, it's cute.
Oh my gosh, all of that. That is amazing. So that just goes to show, like, you really did manifest this life for yourself.
Yeah, I guess.
Or,
I don't think of it
or
like
I
that.
pushed you into it so much
Yeah,
that
right. I just like I have a really hard time with taking a step back and looking at the whole thing, going, "Wow, look how far I came." Because I really just put my head down and push my way through things. Like that's how I adapt. But yeah, when you put it like that, like maybe I kind of manifested this entire life.
Believe. You gotta believe. I'm in this moment of manifesting many things right now.
Yeah,
so
true.
so you got to believe in it. You really have to believe in it in your heart, and then put it out there, visualize it, and then do the steps in order to make it a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And Emily, since you mentioned, how involved you were, in theater and in production and all of that, like how is that sort of different from sort of like you sort of pursuing wrestling? Were you doing that at the same time as you being in school, or were they a completely separate, times in your life?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I kind of had like a really up and down kind of relationship with wrestling, because I was in college and I was actually started as Brandon's, we don't really call them valets anymore, but managers, I guess.
Whatever, lady manager.
Lady manager
Mhm.
for his first wrestling character persona, which was the hobo.
Yeah.
And so
I still know that one.
I was the hobette. And we served chili, and we had dumpster fights, and we did a lot of stuff. I got kidnapped at one point.
Oh my gosh.
I got kidnapped at one point, and there was a lot of stuff that went down. And I did that for a few years, but I could only do it when I had summer break, because I was still going to school. So I could
you didn't go to school in LA.
I didn't go to school in LA. I went up north, so I could only do it during breaks, and so we tried to cram as much as we could. Down, we were on one. Speaking of reality shows, we were on one episode of Rhett and Link's Commercial Kings.
Yes.
Oh wow!
We were the first episode on IFC.
No, IFC.
On
we
IFC.
were the first filmed episode.
We were the first filmed
episode. In the run
episode.
of the show, we were actually further down.
Yeah.
But we were the first filmed episode, so production was kind of a mess.
Yeah. So we did that like in.
We filmed for 3 days for a 22-minute run episode.
Yeah. Anyway,
wow.
3 days. That's insane.
We have to get into that. So there was a lot of exciting things that we did. We had a lot of fun shows. And so I used so it was a great way for me to use my theater background, my performance background, and just play this really fun character that everyone really loved. They really loved us together. We had a little hobo prom pictures made, which I can send you. There's some throwbacks.
Yeah, I know.
And I did that for a while, but I was so busy in school. I was doing musicals, and I was doing operas, and I was doing dance. I was dancing at one point like 3 to 4 hours a day, and it was a lot. And I transitioned in, I was a production manager for my department in undergrad. And then all of my teachers said, hey, you really need to do producing. You need to look into that. And I applied to California Institute of the Arts, which was in Southern California. So I was trying to go back. So I applied to 2 different schools. I applied to Cal State Northridge, which was in my hometown.
Which is a good school, but it's kind of down here.
But it was also for like a PhD and master's program in theater history. And I got accepted to that. And I also got accepted into one of the top producing programs in the country. Yeah. Only 4 people get admitted a year.
Cal Arts is the top of the top.
And they're very avant-garde, very out there. You've seen he's seen almost every show that I've done. Yeah. And so I decided to go that route. So it was a 3-year program, and I had to throw everything into that, right? I had to throw all my being into going to grad school. And because I was producing huge shows every year with huge budgets, we were working with people from all over the world. And I was eventually bringing theater around the world and going on tour and doing that. And
you went to Moscow for a while.
I did. I went to Moscow. I sent a show to Mexico, and we were going all over the place and all over LA. And obviously Brandon was still pursuing wrestling, and I always supported him. I always was like helped with merch and helped with kind of behind the scenes business aspect of it, because I wanted to still be involved. But I really had to focus on the producing. But I always loved performing and being in front of a crowd, because you can't really beat that in anything that you do. You really like the roar of the crowd, the clapping of the crowd. That's what I love.
Yeah, like that seems like that was a lot to juggle though, like between all of the schooling and all of the pursuit of your education while also, helping him with his career while also sort of figuring out what you wanted. Like that's a lot, but at least
That's just
you were
her. That's normal for her. She's got like 7 projects right now. Like she is not okay sitting still. She cannot sit still. So she's been doing that sort of thing as long as I've known her.
Yeah. I mean, I would produce plays at Thanksgiving
My God,
when I was a kid.
Even the
oh my gosh
dance that we went to.
Oh yeah.
We went to a homecoming dance when we were both in high school, but we weren't dating yet because she had a huge crush on me. And she had her sister ask me to the homecoming dance for her. And I didn't have a crush on her. I had a crush on her
my sister.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, at the time, I had a crush on her sister.
Yeah.
I made the right choice. But that even at the dance we were at, you were still working because you produced. What did you?
I produced the homecoming parade and the dance. So I was like the producer of that when I was 15,
she was
15
working
years
all
old.
night. I didn't think she liked me because she was working all night, and it felt like
that's just
she
my
was
personality.
ignoring me.
No.
But I didn't know that if she doesn't do that, she'll just like burst into flame.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically me too. So I totally get it. Like you work so much that you don't have a life. You barely have a life. You don't have a work-life balance. It's just work balance.
Exactly. Well, we're trying to get better at it because it's important. So we're learning as the years pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to get better.
Yeah. But a question that I want to ask you, Brandon, is that since you started, pursuing your career, like, and you were talking about how you came up with your character, the hobo, and she was basically like the hobette or whatever. Like, so did you, like, what exactly brought that idea to fruition, and how did you continue to keep that going for such a long period of time? Because I remember the first time I saw you, it was on AfterBuzz, and you would do the after shows for like SmackDown or sometimes for Raw or even for NXT. And I was in college at the time, so I was watching you guys on YouTube, and you just had this really crazy voice, and I was just like, you know what, this is amazing. And then they would talk about how, you would all of your, all the things you would get into as the hobo. So how did you come up with that character, and how did you stay dedicated to it for so long?
So the hobo character was actually a suggestion from Ryan Katz, who's a longtime producer at WWE, who was my first trainer in LA. I don't know why he said it, but he just was like, why don't you just be a hobo? And I'm like, all right, I can do that. And then I did just a ton of research and just looked into what would a professional wrestling hobo look like? What would he sound like? What would he do? How would he move?
You treated it very much like an acting exercise.
Right.
If you're going to play a character, you're going to have to find everything about this person, their backstory.
Yes.
Even the language. You came up with a language?
Well, I didn't really come up with it. I just researched the hobo,
you researched
hobo language.
The hobo
Hobos
language.
have a whole language unto themselves. So I threw myself into it because when I was younger, the wrestling that I liked was really character driven. It was, I mean, granted, it's all athletic, right? But I liked the characters, and I liked how the different characters interacted with different characters and created different scenarios. That was really interesting to me. And then the way that they applied the character to their style in ring also was really interesting to me. So that's how I approached it. I just threw myself at that idea and did as much fleshing out of that character as I could, even including the voice, which I will demonstrate for you now. This is how I just came up for it. The story actually is when I was...
God, I haven't heard that voice in so long.
I'll just break it out randomly when I'm talking to myself.
And you actually like my hobo impression.
I love everyone's hobo impression. I love it. The fact that people compare the hobo's voice to Rolf the dog from the Muppets is like my favorite thing. But the way I came up with the voice was I was literally walking. So we wrestled this little place in Van Nuys. It's where we trained, and to get to the front of the building to walk in for my first match, we had to walk through this Cuban restaurant. And I'm walking through and just going, I'm about to ask people for change. And I'm like, because a hobo asked for change. So it just made sense to me. Like, I'm going to go out beforehand and like talk to the audience, which we knew like half of everybody in the audience because it was my first match and everybody wants to come see the first one. And I'm like, I can't just go up and ask for change just like this. It doesn't work. So I started to think of what would a hobo sound like? What does a hobo sound like to me? And I picked up on Scruffy the janitor from Futurama. That's the voice. Like it's a very flat voice, but it sounds very close to the hobo. So that was the first voice I picked. And over time, especially doing AfterBuzz, because I had to speak for so long and these long stretches of time, I had to figure out how to bring that voice up and down and give it some more life and more energy. So eventually it just evolved into this thing. Now I can go up and I can go down. If I want to fight somebody, I'm getting down. Oh, we're going to be down here. But if everything's cool, man, and it's up here, we're doing all right. What's the problem? We're all just give and take. We're chilling out. Like that's the guy. And I go right into hobo brain whenever I do that voice because he talks differently than I do. Like just it's a whole other thing. So I have like multiple people living inside of my head at any given time. I can just bust them out.
But that's cool though, because creatively, you're never the same thing. Like, cause like 1 minute you're a hobo, then the next, like right now you're Boss Baines. Like there's just so many different characters you could come up with at a certain time. So that's never boring. It's like, I find that a lot of wrestlers who are able to adapt to different characters never get stale. Like they can always evolve that way.
Shift, you can shift, and then because you change also your style of wrestling and just how you hold yourself as you grow and your confidence and just who you are. So changing kind of what you do for in the ring and all of that, or just in life, it changes. Like you just change as a person. So it just makes sense that you can kind of evolve and kind of grab what you need to use at the time that you need to use it.
And I found a lot of success really early as the hobo because it was such a strong character and nobody in Southern California had anything like that, not even close. So it got so that people really thought I was homeless. Like people genuinely thought yeah, it was funny, but not funny because I wasn't trying to portray myself as homeless. I was just trying to portray myself as this idea. But then I ended up making friends with somebody who helped me do a charity thing for I think it was Feeding America. So I ended up doing some charitable work for feedingamerica.org, which kind of helped kind of bridge the gap for me because when you're playing a character, the way that you do when you're playing it, it's like really hardcore. And a lot of people on TV who do characters on television will tell you the same thing. It's dark in there now.
Yeah, see? There you go.
Roll with the punches. There we go.
Woo!
Yeah. Anyway, you get to know a character so well that you get to understand the people that you're pretending to be, and you have a lot of empathy for them. So as a result, I have a lot of empathy for people who are unhoused, and I do try to do a lot of charitable work that helps the unhoused because I think it's just a crime. It's an absolute travesty that people are unhoused and how they're treated is really terrible.
We started working back in California. We started working. I started first, like I did, like kind of like a business retreat with Covenant House California, which is for homeless youth. It's a whole facility that houses 18 to 24-year-olds. And I started working with them. I've worked with them for a really long time. And it was such an eye-opening experience. And especially like since, I feel like we were very lucky. Where obviously you were portraying a character, but we wanted to learn more, and I wanted to know, like, especially in LA, there's so many unhoused
I never wanted to be
individuals.
disrespectful with my portrayal. At
Yeah.
no
Right.
point was
No.
I trying to be the butt of the joke. It was
Right.
just it was just a good way of being an underdog good guy.
Yeah.
And so many of these people, it's not their fault. So it's so difficult to talk about these stories without getting emotional. But especially with Covenant House, so many of the people that we ran into were LGBTQ plus, and their families kicked them out of the house, and that's the reason they were homeless. Like the stories that you would hear are really tragic and heartbreaking, and it just makes you feel for them even more. And you end up asking yourself, well, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
How can I help? And so we always try to work charitably with the unhoused community.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because, you know, like, it's like even playing a character is like you walk a mile in a person's shoes. And then when you think about what it's like in real life for for people like that go through those things, it opens your mind and it opens your heart, right? And I'm glad that it did, you know, sort of offer you, you know, the opportunity to see how these people, you know, and the things that they're going through and sort of find ways to help them. That's amazing. I'm glad you guys did that. Like, that's really good, heartfelt stuff there. So with, of course, the past few years, you know, we've been going through a pandemic of sorts, you know, from it hitting really heavy now to us sort of navigating our way sort of a little bit out of it. How did you guys, you know, navigate that with your, you know, careers being as, you know, active as they are?
It was hard.
It was hard. I mean, I had, I guess, two dual things happen at the same time.
Right.
I mean, I obviously went and had a very creative, you know, kind of office job, producing job in LA. And, you know, I was obviously started doing AfterBuzz TV, and I started doing championship wrestling from Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I started doing all of that while balancing my other.
Why did you start doing that? I literally cannot remember why you decided to start.
So I started doing AfterBuzz
at that time.
So,
but why even before then? I remember you coming to me and going, "I want to start covering wrestling," but I don't remember why that was.
So did I never tell you this?
No, you did. I just don't remember.
No, so I had a dream. So I was also I was very unhappy in my job as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted, like, I did acting, like, small shows here and there in LA, but I really wanted to, like, really go kind of bring my acting and creative side out. And I remember it was like the summer of 2019, and I was like really going through like a crisis, right? Like a creative crisis, a mental crisis, just like having a really tough time figuring out what I'm supposed to do. I wasn't getting the creative stuff I needed, and I wasn't getting.
Part of it was you stopped doing theater.
I stopped doing theater because I was so overwhelmed traveling with my job and doing all this stuff, right? That I was so overwhelmed focusing on that, building a brand for this company, and I wasn't focusing on myself anymore. And that was a big turning point for me. And I had this very, very vivid dream that I was hosting on TV. And it was very vivid. It was like I was on there. I was like had my hair done. It was very vivid. It was as if it was real. And I woke up that day and I turned to him and I said, these are the 5 things that I want right now. And we're going to make this happen. And he said, "What? Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, I want this. And we're going to start here. And I'm a Virgo. And I said, we're going to do these things." And he said, "Are you sure?"
Well, it was also like, how do I get
and how do I get there?
And I'm like, okay, I can get you there. If that is what you want, but you have to really want it. You can't go in this halfway. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it 100%. Because I'm going to put my ass on the line for you.
Yeah.
You have to do that you want.
He said, "I'm going to put my ass on the line for you. You have to do it 100%, full out, no turning back." Yeah. And I said, "I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I'm going to do it. Let's do it." And so that's kind of how it all started. And
Yeah.
And I guess, sorry, it's thundering out loud outside right now.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of happened from there. And then I made a plan, and I made a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, and I'm continuing to make my plans.
But then the pandemic hit.
And then the pandemic hit.
Changed.
But that was
Right.
But what's interesting is, so I'm working from home. So you talked pandemic. Thank you for rounding back to that. And the pandemic hit. I'm like working from home. We're stir crazy in a tiny 1-bedroom, tiny closet of an apartment in Burbank, California.
It was a great apartment. Beautiful
I love that apartment.
As long as we weren't in it 24/7 every single
day. So we were, and we were getting stir crazy.
Because we were traveling so much, we wouldn't see each other that much.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're
Everything
locked
stops.
inside together.
And we haven't done that ever.
Nope. And that was really
That was
hard.
really hard. So anyway, it's really hard. So meanwhile, I'm balancing my work from home job in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Meanwhile, on calls like 10 hours a day, and podcasting at night, and streaming, and trying to make content, and doing all of that. And we were filming the live primetime live show.
Yeah, right.
So we were doing a live television show. So I was doing that, and I was the production stage manager for that. And also on air, we kind of did a little bit of both. Again, I can't just do one thing. So I started doing that. And then I was trying to do AfterBuzz from remotely and doing as much as I could, just as much as I could. And then I guess we moved, and then I guess Texas.
Then Texas. Yeah.
And then Texas happened, which I got an offer. I lost my job. Pandemic.
Yeah, got laid off. Laid off.
And then I was like, all right, you want to go to Texas?
Mm-hmm.
And then prior to that, I actually started working with Mission Pro remotely here in Texas. And then we just started talking. And then I guess, should I tell the story? Do you want me to tell the story, Stephanie?
Yeah, you can tell it.
Okay. So like, meanwhile, I got the offer to move to Austin, Texas. And I was working, so I met Thunder Rosa a couple times. So I met her at AfterBuzz. We did an interview. I interviewed her, and then I met her at Primetime Live when she was the NWA champion.
And I've known Thunder
and you've known her for years. So I met her, and we were working backstage together, and we kind of started really we really connected right off the bat, and we bonded. And when I called her and said, it was like the December of 2020, and I said, hey, how would you feel if I moved to Texas, to Austin, and then I could like work for Mission Pro and just be there? And she said, yeah. She just yells. She yells at the phone, and she's like, we're gonna take over the world.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest reaction, more than anyone else.
Yeah, because we've only lived in LA. Moving anywhere that wasn't LA, especially to Texas, is a massive culture shock.
So she was so excited, and then I said, well, and then we talked about it, and then we moved to Texas, and then the whole Texas wrestling scene. But anyway, what about you for pandemic career-wise?
Well,
nothing on me.
Right. I mean, I was working on a couple of TV shows.
Yeah, because you worked on Primetime with me.
I worked on Primetime during the pandemic. But even before that, like, I was working steadily. I helped build Championship Wrestling from Arizona.
Yeah.
That was a baby that all of us kind of had collectively. Mm-hmm. And Peter Avalon was producing that show, and we were all working together and putting our energy into that. And unfortunately, like, its last episode was right before the we were supposed to film an episode right as shutdown happened.
Yeah, so the last
never happened.
The last episode was February of 2020.
Yeah.
I remember because it comes up every year, the memory. Yeah. And we were supposed to film the 14th or whatever that Saturday was after we all shut down. The world shut down. We were supposed to film that weekend. And it got shut down.
So much changed. Like granted, the opportunities became more limited. Well, that was loud.
Wow, sorry, that was a huge.
I don't know if you can hear that, but that's.
Yeah, I heard it.
Anyway, it just started to turn more into television. Like, everything became television, and I was doing no crowd matches. Even before WWE started doing. Don't touch it. Stop touching the mic. Even before. Why are you touching? the middle of
They're
an
saying-
interview. We'll deal with it later. Oh my God. Well, anyway.
It's been bothering me the whole time.
Well, not now.
Oh my God.
We were doing no crowd shows, and I was doing a character at the time that was he was a conspiracy theorist, because I thought that was an interesting character to pursue, because I am not a conspiracy theorist in any way, but I think the people who are really interesting. So I made this guy a conspiracy theorist, and when the shutdown happened, all the conspiracy theorists went absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
They all
yeah.
became way worse than they were previously. And all of a sudden, the character that I was playing wasn't fun to play anymore.
It wasn't fun.
I tried my best to keep it going. But when Alex Jones said that he wanted to eat his neighbors, that was it. That was the exact moment I went, I cannot pretend to be crazier than these people are literally crazy. And that's where the whole character falls apart. The character is, I have to be crazier than the people I'm pretending to be.
You're like, nah.
It's over. It's over. The bubble popped.
Yeah.
So I tried to kind of keep it going for as long as I could. And it limped along as well as it possibly could have. But then moving to Texas.
When did you start doing Strong?
Strong? Well, we did Strong during the shutdown. I have the date. I literally have the date on a t-shirt.
It all blends together.
Right.
I think we feel like we all lost time there. So we're like, what month?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, New
So we
Japan
just
started
can't-
doing its
New Japan
television
started doing
show
their-
with no crowd, and I was producing that because I've been producing with New Japan in some capacity for 6 years. 6 years now? It'll be 6 years this year. So I mean, it's just like that's it. Everything changed for everybody. But then moving to Texas, I started to understand what people thought of people from California, and that's where this idea of the boss started to evolve. And I started to say, well, I don't have to like pretend to be a character anymore. If I just literally start speaking, I was training at Dog Pound Wrestling, which is Rodney Mack and Jazz's school.
Yeah.
And I would talk to the kids, and they would just start laughing at some of the way I would say things, and some of the stuff I would say. And I went, I don't really have to do a character to connect with this audience. So maybe I'll just be basically me.
but you want it at such an elevated level.
Right,
it's like a
right.
ridiculous
like
level.
Intentionally offensive
There's
instead
so
of
many-
accidentally offensive, which I am occasionally.
Like we had to have this conversation because there were certain things he would say. Like obviously he would take things and he's a character, so it's over the top. Where it would literally be nails on a chalkboard for me. And
like just the phrase,
So-
I deserve the best. I deserve the best. What? I deserve the best.
There's just little things that drive me crazy.
But she had to deal with that internally because it was a trigger
Oh
from
my
past
God.
trauma
Oh my
that had
God.
nothing to do with
Whatever.
me. It had nothing to do with what I was
We're
doing.
getting
She had
deep.
to deal with
We're getting deep.
her own emotions and her own baggage that had nothing to do with me.
I think we're done here. Stephanie, we're done.
No. We're done.
We're done.
No, we're done, Emily. No.
On the rain.
No. We're done. When I say we're finished, this is my show. Okay.
Like, you go, girl. You're like, it's my show.
That's right.
This is my show.
Okay,
But yeah.
all right, it's
But
your
yeah,
turn.
like y'all are so funny. It's just like a lot of people were having to sort of, find a way to still be active even with the pandemic, because it's funny when I think about it, like I started this show, the month before it happened.
Oh,
So it
man.
was just kind of like, after that point, if I did not have this entity at this show as it is, I would not have really like had anything to really work on at that point. Cause I was just like, bro, like, where's all this creative energy going to go besides working and stuff?
Exactly.
So I
You
was
have
just
to-
like,
you have to build
it was-
yourself up, not other
Yeah,
people
you
all
do.
the time. Because if you're working
Yeah.
for whatever company in whatever life, not just wrestling, but you're building other people up. You're making them money. But how do you build yourself up and make yourself the best person you can be and do stuff that makes you happy? I think the biggest thing the pandemic taught everyone is you have to do what makes you happy. Life is way too short, and just you have to go for it. I mean, we started we started a pro wrestling pets show because during the pandemic, it kind of came out of women's wrestling talk, and then I branched out on my own. But literally every animal would pop up on the screen when we would do interviews, and it made everyone so happy to see their dogs and cats and other animals, rabbits. And it was just a perfect thing to say, hey, we're going to have some heartwarming content during the pandemic when we're all stuck inside. So we had some amazing interviews, and that was kind of how I dealt with it as well. As I started doing cooking shows and cooking segments.
And I was the one producing all of the stuff that she was doing.
Yeah.
Because she would come to me and go, I want to do this.
I want to do this.
From a technical standpoint, I go, okay, so how do we make this work? Like even today, like I had to figure out how to get this microphone set up so that we could both be on screen together. Because like we're in our studio, like this is obviously of the front room of our house, but this is also we have a green screen that you can't see that right here. We have box lights everywhere. We have a whole bunch of equipment, and it's like we work together to create all of the stuff that we wanted to make. Like she wanted a cooking show, so I said, okay, this is how we would make a cooking show. And I watched old Julia Child clips. But like from behind the scenes, like, did you know they made like a huge mirror on the ceiling so that you could see her hands while she's cooking?
No.
They would actually shoot up and a mirror would be focusing on her hands. Like I had to like figure out I actually love that technical aspect.
I know. But
all the stuff
we would watch like the daytime TV of like all the morning news segments and
we still
all
do
of that. Because one of my goals is to be on, daytime TV, have my own talk show, have my own cooking show.
Watch a lot of PBS.
We watch PBS.
PBS, because everything's on a shoestring budget, which is basically what we're working with. So seeing what their content looks like is like, okay, well, how can we replicate this? So I'm looking at shots and stuff like that.
So like he's such a creative mind behind the scenes, and then I go on camera and do my little dance.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brandon, what I want to ask you is the fact that since you've, been in wrestling, you've been featured on a lot of different shows with a lot of different roles, like backstage hand, security, all of the things. So what would you say is your favorite experience doing something, doing anything like that when it comes to television or even in the independent stuff?
I'd say that my best experience was probably wrestling on NXT against Mustache Mountain. That was probably my best experience because it felt really natural in a strange way. Because I had already won some tag team championships at that point. I won and lost them. So thank you very much. So when I won and lost. So when I went in, it was a process that I knew really well from having done TV for years with Dave Marquez. That whole process got me comfortable with knowing how this whole thing was going to work, being able to work with the talent, being able to work with the producer.
It set you up for success.
It does. And television wrestling is the same wherever you go. It is pretty much exactly the same. So if you do it in one place, you can do it in other places. And it was the most comfortable I had felt in a long time, because it was just like, okay, I know what's going to happen. This is what I have to do. This is how we do this. I'm going to make this. It was so easy. And I loved being able to go into that whole thing and just feel comfortable when you're at that high level and you walk in and you're just comfortable with whatever's going to happen. I think it's a fantastic feeling, because it shows that you've done the work. You've put in all the work and the effort, and what you get out of it is the freedom to just work in the moment. And I think that was exactly what happened. I knew what I was doing, and it felt so comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, the lesson there that I try to do all the time and keep, which I learned from theater, and I learned from interviewing everyone and starting podcasts and just working behind the scenes in any situation, is that preparation meets opportunity.
That's right.
Definitely.
You have to be ready when that opportunity comes, or else it's going to pass you by.
Why are you so mad?
I'm not.
You're
I'm not
just
mad.
so
This is just how I talk. This is just who I am.
So loud.
You have to be ready.
He's very passionate.
You gotta be ready. I'm ready right now.
He's just very passionate. Like, I get it. It's
I'm
okay.
glad I
People
didn't
tell me
rip
that
my
all the
shirt.
time.
I didn't remind. No, I love this.
Okay, I'm ripping.
Cupid's gotta
Sorry, I
represent.
thought we were gonna do
Best chili dogs in the valley. Cupid's hot dogs, man.
Oh,
Best hot dogs in the valley. God, I missed
Okay, it's all right. Calm down.
that. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Always.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Kind of derailed there.
But yeah, it's just like, I can only imagine what Wrestling Mustache Mountain was like. They are a killer tag team. Like, I loved watching them wrestle in NXT UK, and just seeing what the type of stuff that they're both doing now separately. It's just like cool.
Yeah,
like, you have Tyler Bate, who's still in NXT.
I remember watching that moment at home,
Mhm.
and I was so excited. And it's just because I've been there since the seed was planted of like, hey, we're gonna do this together. And so seeing him on a platform like that was just really like, it got me all crying. You know me, a Virgo.
Yeah.
I was crying. And it just was really, it made the hard moments worth it when you get a little moment like that just kind of makes it, even if it just proves that, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
That's you can take that home with you.
Yeah. And that I'm lucky that all of the work that I've done I've acquired skills that I can use in any company, anywhere in the world. And it's helped me at Mission Pro. When I'm helping people produce matches at Mission Pro, I can explain to them, this is the goal. This is what we're trying to achieve, and help them like others have helped me to be the best version of themselves that they can be. Like others have tried to help me in the past. So that's always my goal.
We're trying to pay it forward.
Absolutely.
Because we've been in this for so long,
I'm already seeing the next generation. Like this is my 14th year. I'm already seeing the next generation. I'm seeing and meeting people who used to watch me on TV when they were literally children. It's weird.
That was a moment.
A full-grown man with a beard walked up to me and said, "Hey, man, I used to watch you when I was a kid, and you were my favorite wrestler." And I went, "Oh my God, I'm old. What happened to me?"
Oh.
But I look good. I look all right. Yeah,
you're good. You're all right. You're all right.
You guys age pretty well. You guys age pretty well. You guys don't look whatever your ages are.
Yeah, we're good. We can move on.
Yeah, I
talk about my age.
But yeah, it's wonderful that you are able to see, all of your hard work sort of, coalesce into the next generation. Like, that's really cool. So, Emily, how is it that you found Women's Wrestling Talk? And how did you hook up with TK Trinidad, our fabulous CEO, and Sarah the Rebel, and basically help to, create what it is that Women's Wrestling Talk is now, which is a thriving institution?
Yeah.
Well, it started off as a prank.
Okay, I'll tell this. I'm still mad at you.
I can't tell you.
I'm still mad at you. I get to.
You go ahead.
It was my question.
It was your question, but it was my prank.
So it was his prank. Okay.
Oh wow.
So it's AfterBuzz TV. Women's Wrestling Talk was originally called Women's Wrestling Weekly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
So that was what the original show was called. And when I went to him and said, "Hey, I want to join AfterBuzz. I'm going to do all these things. Blah blah blah. We're going to make it happen." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll reach out to my friend TK, who I used to do. I think you did Raw.
Yeah, we did Raw.
After
We
show.
did a bunch of different.
We did a bunch of wrestling
shows,
after shows.
Primarily,
yeah.
Raw. You were in the
primarily
trenches,
Raw. You were in the trenches
every
And
week.
he said, "Oh, let me reach out to her and see if she has an opening for the women's show, because you're going to be great on that. It's going to be a great platform for you."
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, long
what
story.
was the first show you covered?
I don't remember, but
Was it Raw? I think it was Raw.
No, it was NXT.
Was it? No, really?
Yeah,
She's doing NXT.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we had.
So I showed up on. It was NXT day. So was it Tuesday or Wednesday at that time?
It was Wednesday at that time.
It was Wednesday at that time? Okay. Everything's blending together. So Wednesday. And he said, "Oh, you should just show up at the studio. Just show up to the AfterBuzz studio. Try to talk to her, But I thought, I went in there, and this tells you, so I went in there, and I see, oh, no, TK wasn't even sitting out there yet.
No.
So I walk in, and I'm like, "Hey," and I asked for TK, and she walks out and she's like whispering to people, and she's like looking at me. So she comes out, she looks at me, and she's like, hey. And so like I kind of introduced myself, but I didn't introduce myself as, hey, I'm Brandon's wife, because no one introduces themselves like that.
And
I'm just
we
like,
don't,
I'm Emily.
we don't say that we're married.
We never say, we never
when
say
we're
married.
in a business like setting.
Yeah.
We don't say that.
We're not like making out in the backstage.
No.
Not often.
No.
What? So I go, and it was very awkward interaction. And I sit with TK and I think a few other AfterBuzz hosts, and they're watching the NXT. So we got to watch the show before it was live, so we knew what was happening. So they're watching it, and this was a 2-hour show at that point, or an hour.
It was an hour.
An hour.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, hey. And they're like kind of talking to me. Everyone else is being nice, and TK's being quiet. And TK's like, who is this chick? Why is she showing up? And it was George. Yeah, it was George.
George
Hermosa, who is a huge wrestling fan at AfterBuzz. He's like an encyclopedia of knowledge. Mm-hmm. He taught me a lot too. He comes up and he knows me from Hollywood, and obviously being married to Brandon. And he's like, oh my God, the hobo's wife. And gives me a big old hug. And TK turns to me and is like, why didn't you tell me? He didn't say anything.
Somebody was coming.
He didn't say anything.
I said, hey, do you have an extra spot? And she said, yeah. But I never told
he didn't say anything.
That it was my wife.
He didn't say anything.
Because I wanted her to put herself in a good spot without needing me to pave the way.
Yeah.
In my own way, it was me asking her, how bad do you want this? Because I know TK really well. And I knew she wasn't necessarily going to be exactly warm and fuzzy to somebody coming in that she doesn't know. I know TK. So I put her in the seat, but I didn't exactly, roll out the red carpet for her.
So he threw me under the bus.
No.
And TK messaged him while we're sitting there watching NXT.
So I got heat from both sides.
I
got yelled at from TK and I got yelled at from her.
Yeah.
So,
because she said she would have been totally cool with it, and
I didn't want that.
So that's how it happened. And then long story short, like TK and I, there wasn't really hosts, like a lot of wrestling female hosts that wanted to be a part of this. So she brought me on board. We started doing interviews in the studio. Pandemic happened. We kind of rebranded a little bit. We obviously ventured away from AfterBuzz TV studios and the network, and just kind of branched out on our own, and we just built the brand. And then Sarah came on, I think, mid-pandemic while we were trying to rebrand and figure things out. And so she came on for a little bit, and we did that for a while. And she was like one of the original hosts at AfterBuzz for a short time.
I had known her for a long time from a lot of different places.
So then we just all started doing that, and then now it obviously is what it is now. Yeah, I mean, that was really the opportunity at AfterBuzz, and then they put me on every after show for wrestling and all the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, did every show, and then I did the Golden Globes, and I did a bunch of other stuff outside of wrestling, because like just entertainment and all of that was obviously what I loved as well. So I did a bunch of Netflix shows too. Yeah, so I did so many after shows. There was some like pretty much every day.
Portfolio.
Yeah, pretty much every day I did a different one.
You had to do more than just wrestling. You have to diversify your portfolio.
Exactly. So yeah. Anyway, that's a long. I don't know if we answered your question.
Oh, that answered it. Yeah.
Yeah, you basically answered it.
Yeah, that answered it.
Well.
Yeah, because the thing about, whenever I would watch AfterBuzz, it's just like I was thinking, like, a part of me was wondering, like, are these just ordinary people? But then as you guys started to talk more about what you guys did, I was just like, okay, so they work in wrestling, or they're just hosts, or, yeah. But it's just that when I saw it, I just thought it was the most fascinating and coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I'm just like, I've never said this, but I think at one point I actually tried to apply for AfterBuzz at one point.
Oh, cool.
I was all the way in Kentucky. At this point, working on my degree. I really did try, and I never heard back. But either way, I was just like, let me just do this. But I didn't think.
Moved. I was also a writer for AfterBuzz as well, but a lot of people moved from Canada and other places and other countries, other states, cities to move to LA to be at AfterBuzz. Like it was a
Wow.
really big network.
I mean,
there was
they
500
had a genuine pipeline to some major companies,
they did.
including WWE.
like,
so
Right.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, MTV, Entertainment Network, like all of these, like this was a pipeline. Like I have always watched the red carpets, like ever since I was a kid. Like my mom would watch every award show, and I always told my mom, I'm gonna interview on the red carpet one day, and I'm gonna do all these things. And she said, "Oh, I totally can see you there." And I was like, I'm either accepting an award or I'm gonna be on the red carpet or both. And it was definitely it's definitely still in my pipeline and still in my manifesting in my dreams. So. And that was kind of a way that I got into it. I was doing red carpet training while right as the pandemic happened and they shut down all the red carpets. And then that was a huge industry that took a big hit, and they're still coming back, and they're still adjusting to kind of the whole virtual interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's just like through all of that and with your work with Women's Wrestling Weekly, which became Women's Wrestling Talk, like through you guys, doing the rebranding and everything, it was able to open the doors for, hosts like me who were just starting, even though I wasn't exactly sure because I was only doing this show on audio and I just didn't know anything about video at that certain point. But I was just like, okay, well, let me just try. And because I just tried, I'm a part of the network and I've learned so much from you, and I've learned so much from TK and Sarah, who is also, Razor on Wow Superheroes. Just want to plug that. But yeah, it's just I've learned so much from you guys, from your journalistic perspectives and from your entertainment stuff that I've applied to my own show and to my own thing that continues to help me to grow every single month or few months or whatever. And I've had all these opportunities and met so many amazing people, and I'm just really grateful for it. And that happens through the hard work that you did and through the hard work that Brandon has done as well, and you guys helping each other with that. So with moving forward, something that the reason why this interview is even happening is because of the fact that you guys were on Battle in the Valley in so many different ways in talking about your hard work. And this was a really big event because of the fact that not only did you have, of course, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on the line, you had a really high profile match with Miss Mercedes Moné, who is my fave, as you can see in the background, battling Kyrie for the IWGP Women's title. Tell me what was that like, producing it and also being a part of the press conference component of it as well, with doing interviews backstage afterward and before and all that. Like, what was that like?
How was your interview? I'm just kidding.
Well,
so I'm very lucky that I get to be a part of New Japan, and there's not a lot of women on the production team and a part of the organization on the US side. And so I'm just very blessed. Like every day where I'm like, oh, I get to go to, every time I get news that I get to go to a show and be a part of it, I'm super excited. And I stayed up for 2 days straight for Wrestle Kingdom this year, and I watched. I was very tired, and I covered it, and I wanted to really see what was going to happen. And when Mercedes debuted, I was so thrilled and so excited for the opportunity that she would be here in the United States. And then they announced, obviously she was going to be at Battle in the Valley. And just as someone who is a woman in the business who, is in a very male-dominated industry, I was so excited to see her shine in many ways. And it just was thrilling. I mean, I'm trying to find the words, but it was thrilling to be there and to even just have a small part in it. I don't consider myself a big part of it. I just try to help manage kind of the operation side of it and try to make fans have a good time and just share that the show's happening. And I was just so blessed that they asked me to lead the press conference, and which I don't know if that's ever, I don't know. I still am like, did this happen? I'm like, did this happen? I mean, I was so honored, and I didn't really talk about it. I didn't tell people really ahead of time because I was so I was so nervous. I was like, okay, I got to keep it together. And there was this moment that I'll share, that when we were doing the press conference and there was Mercedes, I think I shared it with you privately, but there was Mercedes and Kyrie and I standing there. So there was 3 women representing New Japan in kind of a public arena. And it just was a really kind of private, kind of pivotal moment in my heart and in my soul that was really special, that I felt like I was making a difference in a small way, that this was representing something bigger than myself. And just being there for the match was obviously incredible. The crowd was so into it, and it was very special. And both of them had such respect and such care for each other in that match. Like, they really took care of each other. And I mean, even though they
beat the absolute hell out of each other.
They did.
But in the sense of, like, they supported each other, like they knew that this was a big deal.
Yes.
And so that's what I meant by that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I saw obviously behind the scenes moments that were really impactful, and we saw the backstage comments that Mercedes gave, and it really is a new era of New Japan, especially with her involved. And I can't wait to see the women grow in this company.
Yeah.
And I'm just blessed that I get to have a small part in it.
I mean, I can tell you, and I think I'm okay in sharing this with you, that the company has been trying to add women in some capacity since about 2018 through 2019. So it's been about that long for us to get to this point now. Nothing happens quickly, and the pandemic definitely didn't help anything.
Yeah.
But the company, or companies rather, have been working together under the Bushiroad umbrella, who is the parent company that owns both of our companies, to try and make shows that have both men and women on the show. And it has been difficult. But I think it's only possible because of the United States. I really feel like there is a special energy that exists in the United States. And this is also from a company perspective. They feel like anything is possible here. So they're willing to take chances and to do more in the United States than they would be willing in Japan.
And there's a fan energy here in the United States that especially coming out of the pandemic, that has been wanting and craving more New Japan wrestling and wanting more of these matches, because it's very different than anything you see. And we really felt that as we started coming out of kind of strong tapings and getting audiences back. And we really felt that as we started building these shows and building champions and building
and traveling across
moments
the country, like
and different
seeing
cities,
different cities and what they react to, and how and which audiences follow the branding and all that. And it's been really eye-opening to see that Japanese styled wrestling can work on a national level. And there's a lot of people inside the wrestling industry that don't believe it can work. But I completely disagree with that premise, because Japanese professional wrestling, New Japan specifically, is traditional professional wrestling. Whatever you see, I can guarantee you that its base, at its very base, is traditional professional wrestling, laid down by Gotch. When they train in the dojo, they go off of what the Gotch Bible says. That is their basis for training in wrestling. So everything springs up out of that. Everything has a traditional base, more traditional than any other organization in the United States, probably any other organization in any other country.
Yeah.
New Japan Pro Wrestling has a basis in traditional professional wrestling, which, in my opinion, is what makes it so good. Once you have that strong foundation, you're able to build something that is so strong that it is unshakable, and you can see the difference, and you can experience the difference, and that is why what you see is so unique when compared to any other brand of professional wrestling.
and I've been going down just this rabbit hole of just all of these matches and these matchups, and I was new. Obviously, Brandon's worked with New Japan for a really long time, and I worked on and off. Like, I've done merchandise for them, I've done front of house staff, I've done ops, I've done social media, so I've done like different roles. And so what was exciting about that, and me, like, and us working together and doing shows together, is like I could go and do my research and look up all these matches from years ago of these wrestlers that I get to meet and these wrestlers that I get to work with. And it really did, when we were doing strong tapings, it really did feel like we were a family, because we all saw each other on the road. We all saw each other kind of exhausted and then, but also excited for the show. And it really felt like we were all working for the same purpose, was to entertain fans and put on a good show.
Very much had a team atmosphere.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's great that you guys had that, family atmosphere, and you guys have a great working environment, because that definitely helps when you're doing something that you love, that you're not going to a place that's toxic. So I'm glad that you guys are dealing with that. And then on top of that, you guys are a part of something special, because New Japan is growing here in the United States and expanding to a new audience. Because what I can say is this, though: when Mercedes announced that she was coming to New Japan and she was fighting at Battle in the Valley, that was the first New Japan pay-per-view I ever ordered in my life.
Oh,
so I
really?
was just like,
You're
yeah.
not alone.
You're not alone. We had so many people.
It's pretty
Yeah.
much that match sold out the
sold
building.
it. Yeah. Sold out the building.
Yeah.
So I mean it broke. Like, we broke the internet.
Yeah, that's why the
You
show
guys did break the internet. It was like all day. It was an
Too many
all week
people
thing.
logged on at once.
Yeah, and so it was just like, with that being the first time I ordered that pay-per-view and actually watched it, I learned that there was like a different culture behind it, and there's a different, way of doing things that they do it. Like, there's a 20 count instead of a 10 count, and so many and little things like that. But I appreciate that, because wrestling is a really big atmosphere. So it's just like, the idea that there's so many diverse ways to do this one amazing sport is just really cool. And then on top of that, with all that history being made with the women, with New Japan and Stardom with their women's division, starting, and with Mercedes Moné now at the helm as the champion, it's only going to get bigger from there. And then you have all the other stars from Japan who want to fight her for the title. It's only going to get bigger. And you guys are a part of that change and are a part of that shift. And that is a very amazing thing that you guys get to feel cool about, Because Brandon, I was so excited when I saw you on the floor, overseeing everything. I was just like, look at him go. Like, that's so cool.
She messaged me saying, I see Brandon. I'm like, yeah, I see him all the time.
A lot of people were like, yeah, he is all over this. And
you had such a great tableau over, I think it was Jay White.
It was the Jay White Eddie Kingston.
It was the Jay White Kingston match. Yeah. And I also, by the way, I love Eddie Kingston and Jay White, and I might have cried a couple times in a couple of those matches. And the Fred Rosser match, I cried.
Oh, Fred.
I cried. I'm getting choked up, because he is one of my favorite people in the whole world. He is I don't know why I'm crying right now. He is one of my biggest supporters, and we go all the way back from Southern California, and so he is one of those people that always gives me a big ol' hug at tapings. And he, when I moved into kind of into backstage interviews, he was so excited for me, and he just kept kind of breaking the fourth wall, and I was like, you gotta stop breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Because if you watch the press conferences in Japan, no one ever talks to the person introducing everybody. Nobody does. But everybody wants to talk to Emily. They're like, Emily, I see you over there.
Like, Fred started talking to me, and then Clark started talking to me, and I'm like, hey guys. Eddie was talking. Well, Eddie interrupted me. That was different. But everyone started talking, and I was like, guys, this is not how the press conference is supposed to work.
This is America. We're born in America.
And I just was like, all right. I said, I'm going to roll with the circus. I'm going to just go with whatever happens. Yeah, really. But anyway, I love Fred, and it was such a special, it was a pivotal show for many people. I know there was new champions and things like that, and the Jay White not returning, obviously, to New Japan, and then obviously
And
Mercedes.
it was
a
really,
very emotional night for all
me.
of us.
It was really interesting watching Mercedes finally in that environment, because I knew what a huge New Japan fan she was over the years. Watching her in WWE, I knew she was taking stuff that she saw on New Japan World and was applying it directly to the stuff that she was doing in WWE. So I knew going into this what it meant to her, and being able in some small way to help her realize this dream of hers was very fulfilling for me.
Yeah. And I think everyone felt that energy and felt going in how special this was, and that we all just were like trying to make dreams come true that day, whether it was fans watching Mercedes for the first time in a really long time have a match, whether it was a little boy or little girl seeing, Eddie Kingston in the ring, or Jay White or Fred Rosser, and imagining themselves in the ring one day. Like we just try to make dreams come true, and she had her dream come true that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful night. It was late, but on our end here in Alabama. But either way, it was worth it. Yeah, I can only imagine having to work it. But either way, it was still a beautiful, display of what wrestling is all about. That whole day, honestly, between Elimination Chamber and that, it was just a lot to deal with. But either way, I was so happy to see your faces, in it. And I was just like, oh my God, it's them. Like, I just love seeing people that I know, working in these big places, because it makes me believe in my own self, and it makes me feel like, well, I can do this too. If the people in my life and the people that I love, can do it as well. So what would you guys say that the future holds for you both?
What do you think?
I think we're going to take over the world.
I think, yeah. No, I really think so.
Yeah, I think that I am going to be everywhere soon.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be everywhere soon.
I think between the two of us, we already are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the amount of involvement that we have in all of these different wrestling endeavors is going to increase.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you're a professional and you're at the top of your field. Is people come to you and say, well, can you do this? Can we have your help on this thing? And absolutely. And I'm going to continue to wrestle, and I'm going to continue to produce. I see professional wrestling as my career. This is my career, and it has been
in whatever capacity
since day one. And that includes being in the ring, and that includes being backstage and helping in whatever capacity that is. Yeah. Like on even Saturday, in a couple of days, I'm about to wrestle Rodney Mack, which is a huge opportunity. I remember Rodney Mack when I was a kid.
Rodney Mack.
Hell yeah. Now I get to wrestle him. Yeah. That's a huge opportunity for me. And when I beat Rodney Mack, then I guess I'm like the king of Texas or whatever.
Top dog in Texas.
That's right.
For me, I really feel like I'm going to have some red carpets happening. I don't know when this is airing, but I'm going to have some red carpets happening in the future. Hopefully in the near future. And I'm going to have my own TV show, and I will be a broadcaster in a big company. And you're going to see me on daytime TV or late night. Maybe I'll do some late night TV.
And wherever she goes,
Emily's out. Emily Mae's hour.
She goes. Yeah.
And I'll bring them along. Make sure everything's set up right.
We're a team.
We're a team. Team Taylor.
That's right.
Hey.
So I really feel like the world is our oyster right now. I feel like we're on just this really great path, and it's been a really hard 6 months just personally, with a lot of just like financial stuff and mental stuff and health. And
you gonna cry again?
No, I'm fine. And just job stuff. And so when you have so many negative things come at you for so long, and then all of a sudden you have a good thing happen, and you have a few other good things, you kind of worry a little bit, but then you just keep pushing and want more good things. So that's what I'm working for, is I want more good, more positive, more happy moments in our life.
Yeah.
And
I'm all about the fight. I'm all about fighting through it.
Whatever, you're fighting.
Whatever stuff there is, you just fight. You gotta fight. Just keep punching and punching and punching. And eventually you can knock down whatever wall is in your way, as long as you just keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. No matter what.
I can't punch. I'm not a puncher.
You are not a puncher. You're definitely a lot nicer. You'd make friends with the wall. You definitely work the wall into a door. Eventually you would talk the wall into a door. Whereas
I do
I'm going to
talk
keep
a lot of
punching and
things
punching
out.
and punching and punching, and eventually the wall will just come crashing down.
And I might talk your ear off a lot.
Yes,
I might talk your ear
we
off.
have different management styles. We definitely have different ways of approaching things.
Yeah.
But we respect each other in that way.
Do we?
Yes,
Oh.
we do. I respect you. As long as you respect me, do you respect me?
I do.
Okay. Say it into the microphone. You said it a little further away.
I respect you.
There we go.
I
So
just-
yeah.
I just have to see his reaction.
There's
See, we've
respect.
known each other so long that we can do that to each
Yes,
other.
we can.
Yes, you guys are just so precious, and I'm so happy you guys have each other.
Nice way to say it.
I'm happy
Bless
you
our
guys have each other to, you know, pull each other through the hard times and through the good times. So thank you guys so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and talking about your love for wrestling and for each other. So tell everybody.
Podcast ever.
I think it's one of the best
No.
ones. Like, we definitely talked a lot. We have a lot of good sound bites.
Yeah, but
We're a good interview.
But Stephanie's like, this was only supposed to be 20 minutes.
No. Like usually it goes over an hour, so it's okay.
Okay.
Like
Oh,
this
good.
is fine.
We're right on
We're
time.
good. I
We're
was
right on
worried.
time.
I was worried.
No. I don't just do 20 minutes with people. Like that's something else that I've learned how to do is shorten things to 20 minutes.
No,
Cause
it's easy.
oh gosh.
It's easy to go long when you're talking a lot, but then you gotta learn how to like condense it and really get to the heart of the matter. That both those things are really important to learn how to do. You're doing a good job. You keep it up. You're doing a good job.
Thank you so much. So tell everybody where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
Go first.
All right. Well, you can follow me on all social platforms at Emily Mae Heller. And just follow me on Instagram all over because I have tons of new things and exciting things happening. And the next 6 weeks are going to be so busy, but I'm excited. So follow me for all of my fun announcements. And yeah, your turn.
For me, you can follow me on all social media at Baines Destroy. Saturday, I'm going to be at Branded Outlaw Wrestling in San Antonio, wrestling Rodney Mack. It's going to be dope. I'm going to beat him. It's going to be great. And then WrestleMania weekend, I've got the Ringmaster book debut. It's really interesting. Like, there's a book that somebody wrote about Vince McMahon, and they're going to have wrestling at the book release. And I'm going to be wrestling on that. Then the next night is Wrestling Pro Wrestling. Brian Kendrick's Wrestling Pro Wrestling cannot overstate how great that show is and how important that show is to me. And then Mitzvah Mania on Sunday, April the 2nd. It's the first all Jewish professional wrestling show in Los Angeles, and I'm going to be on that too. So that's going to be dope. So yeah, I got a lot going on, and so stay to my social media at Baines Destroy for all that.
You're so busy.
I'm busy.
Oh, I'm tired.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's going to be a busy weekend for all of us. So, yeah, WrestleMania. Gotta love it because that is on the horizon. But of course, you know, you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, and follow and listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast everywhere you get your shows, and subscribe on the YouTube channel for this interview and many other interviews and other full episodes as well. So until next time, this is your girl Stephanie of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.